Is there ever a time when we're truly in the present moment and not looking toward the past or the future? I mean, right there, in the moment.
I get that way when I watch Handy Manny.
Okay, funny story. When I was a kid, I was watching that episode of The Simpsons with the whale, tells you my age, and I saw a commercial for this episode where Seth MacFarlane did the voices for Brian and Stewie. Of course, I had no context for the episode. I did try to watch Family Guy occasionally as a kid, but I was never allowed. But when I finally learned the magic of sneak watching in Adult Swim reruns about a year or two later, Brian and Stewie was one of the first episodes I saw, and I finally realized, even as a middle schooler who thought every Family Guy episode was some level of funny, yeah, this sucked, that was it. Except for one or two moments, it sucked a lot of eggs. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about Family Guy, or more specifically, Brian and Stewie. Their first failed attempt at drama. It seems like the kind of pretentious drama only somebody like Brian Griffin would write about, and I'm surprised that's not the twist ending considering all those cutaways in Trump Guy. Now, Family Guy throughout the years has had one relationship being the main focus. Not like that, you perverts. Stewie and Brian.
Well, actually, it's called Brian and Stewie.
Really? Shouldn't it be person before animal like Turner and Hooch?
I don't think that movie is a good example.
Fine, Brian and Stewie. Throughout the show, the pair have been closer than any of the other Griffins, and we've gotten a lot of great plots, like the Road 2 episodes, which really fits. Brian and Stewie are the most intellectual members of the family, and as a result, they tend to be ostracized by the townsfolk and by their family, and also by themselves to some degree, considering send in Stewie, please. Stewie is a genius for his age, and Brian has a lot of potential, but his own personality contributes to his failure to launch, especially both of their failures to heed criticism of any kind. They're two sides of the same coin, and to some degree, I do think we could go more in depth with this. But all of this led to Brian and Stewie, Family Guy's 150th episode, which polarizes many fans to this day. Some say it's one of Family Guy's best, others say it's their worst, and just an excuse for Seth to talk to himself for 22 minutes, which I do give him credit, he is pretty good as an actor. To me, the episode is a mixed bag, where I can see what they're going for, and at points, especially the ending, I do give them credit. But honestly, it's not that good of an episode, and one that I don't try to rewatch if I can help it. Like, if it's on TV, I'll watch it, but I'm not like, oh no, I can't eat dinner until this episode's on Hulu on my TV. Again, I do see what they're trying to do when I get the drama angle. It's the 150th episode. It's a milestone episode. You tend to do something different to celebrate it. I mean, Lost in Space is held up as one of American Dad's best because it fleshes out Jeff and has a lot of great music, even if it's totally different from the rest of the show. It's just that I feel like this episode should have made fun of drama-type episodes, or been a drama in Family Guy's typical style, like Brian Wallows and Peter Swallows, where it's mostly a comedy besides a couple of moments of brevity, not a drama that takes itself too seriously. Plus, this isn't against the episode, it doesn't help the season it was aired in. Season 8 as a whole got me into Family Guy, but it was pretty bad, all things considered. Literally, the episode that aired after this was Quagmire's Dad, and before it was April and Quahog. I think that tells you all you need to know. But I might review Quagmire's Dad one day in full. So, let's discuss. Now, depending on where you watch the episode, will drastically change what kind of an episode you get. On Hulu, presumably DVD, and as it aired live the first time on Fox, it was part of an hour-long celebration celebrating Family Guy's milestone, with the episode kind of like a sandwich. The first portion was Brian and Stewie introducing it. The next portion was the episode itself. Then finally, we got a bunch of songs from other episodes to help fill out the rest of the hour. For obvious reasons, we're just gonna talk about Brian and Stewie, as in the episode itself. We open up at the Quahog Bank. Brian is in the bank vault with Stewie filling up his safety deposit box. He also has a bottle of alcohol, which will be important later. Good detail episode. I like how you hit the detail of the gun. Again, I do like how when Family Guy wants to imply or do something like a joke for later, they'll have that object there in detail to like foreshadow it. Sometimes it does appear and reappear, but normally they are pretty good about it. Now, what makes this episode so different from the rest of Family Guy is the presentation. Not only is it a drama type of episode, it's a bottle episode, aka an episode that takes place in one location, usually for the sake of character study or because they need to save on the budget, or sometimes both, meaning they never actually leave the bank vault. At most, we just get establishing shots of what's outside. And not only that, but there are absolutely no cutaways or music of any kind, which music I don't mind. I didn't notice anything, and it makes my job a hell of a lot easier because I don't have to voice isolate everything. But the cutaways, unpopular opinion, yeah, I kinda get get why people would be disappointed with that. To be fair, the cutaways with Family Guy sometimes tend to be crutches, where they'll overtake the episode or ruin it if it's meant to be going one way versus the other. Like Screams of Silence is one of those episodes that did not really need cutaways, since not only did it kind of ruin the pacing, they had no extra time to flesh out Jeff and Brenda beyond using them as props. And if they had that extra time, they could have made the episode more moving, or given more weight to why Brenda is with Jeff. Whereas, with something like Munchausen Peter, I don't really notice the fact there aren't cutaways, because the episode is still interesting to me. Where sometimes the cutaways do reek of, yeah, this episode ran too short, so we're just gonna insert Conway Twitty, which is annoying because nothing really happens. Whereas, at least with the giant chicken fights, they're interesting. But sometimes it does drastically help improve a bad episode, I'd argue, because you'll at least get a chuckle out of it. There's a lot of bad episodes where I only really remember the cutaways from them. Whereas with the episodes where they do 3 stories, the biggest complaint I hear is little to no cutaways. Like with Grimjob, since they actually have to work with what they have, and that means making fun of a story that everybody knows. For me, the cutaways don't exactly change my viewpoint of this one episode, even though I feel like they should have included at least 1 or 2. I feel even with cutaways, it would be a pretty bad episode. It's just they would probably help with certain scenes we'll get to later. Plus, the dramatic tone they're going for, like to the point where Seth is the only VA, yeah, that wouldn't help either. This episode is meant to be a drama, and as a result, it's meant to be more of a character study, where we examine Brian and Stewie and why they're so close, albeit we don't really do that till the second half of the episode. But I guess to the writers, it wouldn't have worked as well if every 5 seconds they have to stop the episode to show something random. But I still think it should have had at least 1 or 2. Maybe they could have a scene of Brian and Stewie discussing the cutaways, since they're going for drama, or they set one up together to show their friendship. However, let's go to the drama angle. I have plenty of time to talk about the why of this episode, like their thought process for drama. Right off the bat, we do see how awfully different Brian and Stewie are, yet also similar. They're like 2 sides of the same coin. That's how I like to picture Brian and Stewie. Brian, to me, is an older version of Stewie who couldn't get his act together, whereas Stewie is Brian with a lot of potential. For example, Stewie spent $3,000 on a sweater and now he has to return it, which is part of their day trip, which I think is super cute that the pair are hanging out and running errands together. They really are friends.
You spent $3,000 on a sweater? What's it to you? That's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard.
Brian, don't complain. You have a dead bird in your safety deposit box, and you're a pretentious moron.
You're a moron.
I know you are, Brian, but what am I? The pair start fighting about stupid stuff. Stewie goes to leave to go to what is that?
Outside under the porte cochere.
Stewie, you actually got me to Google that. You can't just say awning. But the door in that moment locks.
Hello, we're locked in! Did you just crap your diaper?
I got scared when the door closed.
Yep, this will come back in a big way. A horribly gross, disgusting, terrible big way. The one time we should forget that they're cartoon characters and therefore can't really do that. Why did you make us not forget, writers? Why? But okay, I guess now I can get into why they decided on the format for this episode. Family Guy is one of those shows that's loaded with references, and honestly, if you get the references, the show becomes 10 times funnier. Even they pointed out in the reboot episode, it's full of subtle references from Seth's childhood, which can either make the show more interesting, like for me, or make it like, what the hell even is this?
I don't really get Family Guy.
What's so hard to get? You just need to have grown up in the 80s but still be a teenager.
This episode was inspired by one of Seth's favorite shows and all-time big inspirations, something that might be foreign to many of us younger folk, All in the Family, which apparently was a really big tour de force, like Eric Cartman was based off of Archie. Or if you like American Dad, you'll likely love All in the Family, since American Dad, especially the earlier seasons, were inspired by the show. Like Jeff and Haley are basically directly taken from the show, I hate to put it that way.
It's a sociology study group. It's a working weekend for Michael.
Working weekend. I know what the meathead's gonna be working on as soon as you two get up in the woods alone.
In season 4's Archie in the Cellar, Archie ends up, you guessed it, trapped in the cellar for the weekend while his family each go out respectively. Like Brian and Stewie, it was a bottle episode that only featured one person, that being Archie. And because it was just Archie, Carol O'Connor pretty much did his own thing. And even if it was a break from the show's typical style, it still worked and is considered one of their funniest to date.
I'm locked in the bestseller!
Again, it's the 150th episode. I get them trying something a little different, and I can understand the appeal of Brian and Stewie being stuck together. They tend to be the funniest part of the show, and Seth is a really good VA. And honestly, I don't even mind the fact the episode is a homage. Thanksgiving was a homage to an episode of All in the Family that featured a Vietnam War deserter, because back then that was a big pressing political issue. But presentation-wise, that's another story. Normally, Brian and Stewie do well together as characters because they bounce well off of each other, and they usually have outside stimuli. Brian has no problem telling Stewie off and vice versa, and it's always followed up with a witty comeback. Plus, since Brian is the only one who understands Stewie, he's the only one who will treat him like an equal, which makes their scenes a lot better since they're two people on the same playing field. But because it takes them so freaking long to get to the dramatic side of things, that means you're stuck with Brian and Stewie just goofing around and shooting the breeze. And since there's little for them to play off of at first, it's not that great. Except this line here.
There's got to be some way out of here. Think!
I don't know, you think of something.
But I have no idea.
So you invented a time machine, but you can't get us out of a safe?
Yeah, that's science. I'm not Houdini.
Good handwave episode. Just saying, with these situations, you need to say why they're trapped and why they can't just go home. We can't spend the whole episode asking why Stewie can't just whip something out. But yep, remember how we established that Stewie, for the sake of censors, made a candy bar? Well, now we get to their first comedy milestone that's treated like a serious drama. Stewie obviously can't have a messy candy bar all night since he'll get a rash or an infection, and there'll still be a stink.
Look, I'm going to propose something, and I need you to hear me out. Will you promise me you'll do that?
I guess.
You guess or you will?
Yes, I'll hear you out.
Oh no. So he asked Brian to, okay, look, I'm sorry, I'm scared of YouTube, so he's just asking Brian a favor. As in, take the candy bar, eat the wrapper, basically. Okay, you know what, just go watch the episode, or don't, it'll save your sanity. Like, literally, I'm getting nauseous just talking about it. And it made me legitimately nauseous watching the show, and normally Family Guy does not do that. Brian, of course, is like, hell no, and all I'm thinking is, why did they think this was funny? And because we're stuck in the bank vault, we're stuck with this. We're stuck with them, like, grappling with this choice. Like, there's crossing the line twice, and then there's throwing a bunch of, like, candy bars all over it. This isn't Caddyshack. That's disgusting. Brian and Stewie shippers, I hope you're happy.
I'm uncomfortable. You have to change me.
Not changing it, we don't even have any diapers. Oh my god, that smell is making me sick.
But honestly, there's such an easy save here. Have either of them pack a spare diaper, or maybe a diaper changing kit. They did have a bag with them, because just saying, they said at the beginning of the episode they were meant to be out all day running errands. They were gonna go get lunch together. Wouldn't Stewie need to be changed at some point during that day? Or for an added bonus, it could show how thoughtful Brian is of Stewie, that he remembered to pack a diaper and maybe even some wipes just in case his friend needed help. Whereas Lois, yeah, she probably let him just stew like that until they got home. Maybe there'd be the problem of the diaper itself, but hey, that's why you have the safety deposit box. Just go store it in there. And the weird part is, they did this way better in Road to the Multiverse, an episode that actually aired earlier that season, where, okay, I'm not describing it, just go watch. But for the record, it was one scene, it was off screen, and it was just implied.
Go on, pick it up. Do it.
Pick up my poop! I need a plastic bag.
Here's a thin napkin.
Plus, as weird as it is to say, it acted as a really good form of karma, since Brian was the one to strand them in that dimension, aka a dimension where dogs were superior to humans. So yeah, he needed to be told what's up. However, one question I do get asked that I want to answer before we go any further is, why do I feel the need to critically judge such an episode? Am I, as a reviewer, taking it too seriously? Well, I guess to some degree, yes I am. But to another degree, I think I'm kind of allowed to harshly judge at least this episode, even if I am trying very hard not to. One reason I don't really get to the bad Family Guy episodes is because Family Guy is a comedy, and to a degree, I love that kind of like South Park, they make fun of everybody. I mean, I'm fat, and I've been mocked for being plus size, and the Fat Guy Strangler is one of my all-time favorite episodes. But the main reason I'm reviewing it here is because when Family Guy has something to say, they are dead serious about it, and they take themselves seriously about it. So if they want me to take them seriously, I have to review what they're doing seriously, even though admittedly the comedy can be pretty funny at times. Plus, I feel like with South Park versus American Dad versus Family Guy, it's also a matter of taste and handling of the comedy. That's part of why I haven't really reviewed The Juice is Loose, because from what I hear, it's just basically a bunch of unfunny jokes. So when am I supposed to say, oh, this joke doesn't work, oh, this joke doesn't work, oh, this joke doesn't work? That'd be pretty lazy, wouldn't it? With Family Guy, I usually find the comedy lazy, for lack of a better word, since instead of really doing something with the concept, they typically just show the concepts. Again, with the stereotypes, they literally just just say what the stereotype is, where at South Park we'd actually see it and get a whole episode on it. Plus, there's also a character with Family Guy who literally says what the joke is, and he's like my least favorite next to the two foreign guys. American Dad, they do it to some degree, but it's so out of pocket that you can't really help but find it funny. I don't know, I think charm is the right word for it. I find the other shows a bit more charming. Sorry if this is a bit of a rant, I just get this comment a lot from some people, so I do want to bring it up. Normally, when I make reviews, I make the point, you don't have to agree with me if you don't want to, but this is just my opinion, and this is why I think the way that I do. Wait, where were we?
Eat it.
What?
Eat it, Brian.
You're out of your mind.
Now, you promised you'd hear me out. Besides, is it really that big a deal? You just said yourself that you're starving.
Oh yeah, that thing. So Brian obviously says no to the candy bar, so Stewie witnesses a gun in the safety deposit box and tries to hold Brian at gunpoint to force him to eat the candy bar. Because they really want to drag this scene out because drama. But in that moment, we get more hand-waving and honestly more proof that Stewie sucks as a person here. Because no offense, he basically causes most of the problems this episode. Like, I hate Brian, but I gotta tell it like it is. Stewie is the reason they're trapped since he spends too long droning on about his sweater. Here, he makes the problem worse by forcing Brian to... Okay, never mind. And it just gets worse because they do have the means to get out, and Stewie actually squanders it at one point. Stewie's phone has a little juice left in it, and they can potentially make a call.
You have your cell phone with you?
You're right. Oh no, low battery. I have to make this call count.
Make the call, make the call, make the call. Mother's fingers, make the call. But rather than call the Griffins or the cops, they call the sweater store. The store where Stewie has to return his sweater, I don't know. And, like, what are they gonna do about it? Damn it, Stewie.
Yes, I was going to see the bounty hunter that night. Well, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you. Good memory, my word. Anyway, it doesn't fit properly. Give me the damn phone.
Hey! Stop it.
Considering what he says later, something tells me he did it on purpose to... Okay, you know what? If it makes you feel any better, apparently in the DVD version, they do try calling Peter, but it goes to voicemail, which I think would have been way better. Even if they probably should have called the cops, but they do know Peter, so maybe they figured he'd pick them up eventually. Honestly, they probably should have just called, like, Lois or Joe. Brian hits Stewie, and rightfully so, and breaks his phone in the process, and Stewie goes in the corner to cry. Again, something tells me he did this on purpose to get Brian to do it. Like, if this were any other episode, he'd likely just slap Brian back or kick him in the knee. But he puts enough pressure and emotion on Brian to, okay, we're skipping over this whole scene, okay? It goes on way longer than necessary. Again, if you wanted to add cutaways, it should have been right here. That way, they can do it by implying it. It would still be gross, but we wouldn't have to witness it. Just say, like, oh, this is worse than that time I tried haggis, or this is worse than that time I tried Indian food or something, or I don't know. Let's just say he eats more than just a candy bar. I'll just put it that way. And while this messy chapter happens, let's talk about the Griffins. Like I established, this is the only episode not to feature the Griffins in any capacity due to, you guessed it, the source material. But the thing is, Archie in the cellar wasn't just Archie goes down to get a soda and then the door slams shut and he's trapped there by himself for 22 minutes. And then he's like, oh, I'll be fine. Oh, wait, Edith and the kids are gone all weekend. The opening featured the main actors to help establish how this would be different. It made you think it was just an average episode and then boom, Archie's in the cellar by himself. And they also show why Archie couldn't just call for help beyond the fact it was the 70s. Plus then, if the episode is one joke, it would go on for a bit too long, especially if argument's sake Carol O'Connor isn't a tour de force. I mean, for me personally, the episode's not that funny, but I'm not the biggest fan of All in the Family, so We also had a scene in the episode where he talks to hallucinations of his family, meaning they are present, just not technically there. Plus I'm pretty sure one of Archie's neighbors helped to free him, so again, it's not just him. While I did bring up the idea of handwaves for this episode as being necessary, one handwave they never bring up is what are the Griffins doing that prevents them from going after Brian and Stewie? Are they looking for Brian and Stewie? I brought up the voicemail to Peter, which is arguably better than Stewie calling the sweater store, but that's just me in my brain. I know they are going for drama, but maybe a way to help break up the pace could be for the Griffins to be out looking for the pair, or they try and then something knocks them out, or just have Brian be like, don't worry, Lois and Peter will find us. No, they're out trying to find the source of the world's dirtiest joke. They'll be gone until Tuesday, it's just us. Every time I watch this episode, I always wonder what's going on outside. Aren't their absences going to be noticed? As in, when Brian and Stewie do go home, what are they gonna find there? The Griffin's worried sick? The Griffin's not there? The Griffin's just not caring? I mean, maybe the police are at the bank looking for them and they just missed them. A lot of earlier Road 2 episodes specifically had Lois and Peter not be there in order for the episode to happen. Like the first one, Brian had to go pick up Stewie, but laid a detour to his childhood home. Or Road to Europe had Lois and Peter at a Kiss concert. There's a lot they could have done. But okay, this scene is finally over, thank God. Ew, Brian also ate oatmeal, another good night. Oh my God. Again, I don't know if they're trying to be dramatic but just failing, or just trying to make fun of drama but failing, or a mix of both, or trying to make the comedy dramatic, but any option is still pretty bad in my book. I don't really find Gross Out funny. But finally, the deed is done and we can move on to other stuff.
Wait, and I can do this part.
Oh, that you can do, that you can do. With the terrible breakfast buffet over, the two lie down to take a nap, which admittedly is kind of cute. Stewie has to ruin it by saying,
Brian,
What?
I just realized something.
What?
Tomorrow's Sunday.
damn it, you mean the episode's gonna go on for longer? Rats. Again, more reason I feel like they should have had a subplot of the Griffins looking for them. A lot of the struggles in this episode really do feel like they couldn't make it stretch to 22 minutes, and at least with the subplot, they could. It would still be a bottle episode of sorts, but it could also help break up the pace. Since a lot of scenes here really stretch. Like, oh yeah, we want it to be dramatic, but we also needed to hit a runtime. And I just realized Brian likely has a ticket considering the parking meter outside, which he obviously can't go outside to, like, you know, pay. Like, if they're gonna be trapped for the weekend and he can't go out, wow, he's gonna have a giant ticket when he gets home. If he even has a car, like, right there at all. Brian wakes up while Stewie's still sleeping, puts a sweater on him as a blanket, again, that's pretty aw, and he drinks the alcohol which he says he was saving. Foreshadowing!
What you doing?
Oh, hey. Just needed a little drink. Was kind of saving it, but, what the hell, right?
Saving it for what?
That's not important.
Since they have nothing else to do or eat, he has to give Stewie something, even if I feel like the alcohol is just gonna make him further dehydrated, and it leads to more of nothing. Even if Stewie did get drunk before and Stewie be goody, and it was way funnier and clever there, and did not go on for too long. They could help they weren't trapped, so there was more Stewie could have done, but okay, funny story, that's how I found out what the word drunk was. For years, when I was a kid, I thought it was a curse word because I was told not to say that. But I think I know another reason I'm not a huge fan of the episode. It's placed in the wrong location. Maybe they didn't want to borrow too heavily from the source material, but I think the basement would have been a better location. If they were trapped there rather than the bank vault, there's more they could have done. With the base, they know their way around it, they can have noodle implements at the ready, and a lot more comedy vehicles. Plus, they could bring in stuff like Stewie's devices to help free them. Only for one reason or another, it doesn't work. Here, it's just what they have on them, and it's not that good. It's just random objects. And whenever they do use, just leads to long, drawn-out, disgusting scenes. Like Stewie asking for a pierced ear with a pin in the sweater and the scotch to sterilize it, even if there literally is no earring.
I'm really impressed. Oh, wait, here, I can hurdle my own leg like they used to do in the 90s.
I know you're drunk, Stewie, but you're also a genius. Come on, what were you thinking? Also, we learned more damning evidence about Brian.
I voted for McCain.
Why am I not surprised? He has a gun in his safe, and Brian was besties with Rush Limbaugh in that one episode just so he could feel superior to others. Then again, Seth in real life was friends with Rush, so I might have to review that episode one day. It's strangely the only time Family Guy worked politically, and it was supporting somebody whose values they probably don't like. But even while I get the idea, if they did want the ear piercing, it should have been Stewie piercing Brian, not the other way around. He's gonna cut his ear off to prevent World War II. Okay, the thing is, Brian took a lot of punishment here. It would be a good form of equilibrium if Stewie did something nice for him, like, Brian, as a thank you for cleaning me up, let me pierce your ear, Bri. Just saying, I don't like Brian, but that's usually because he does wrong stuff, and he did nothing wrong here besides just not paying attention to the time, which even that you can get with Stewie. He needs to get a bone at least once.
So, question.
Yep.
This is gonna seem stupid, but I've been dying to know. The dog whisperer. What is that? Is any of that true?
The dog whisperer. From what I hear, some trainers do find him kind of outdated and bad, but I know nothing about dogs, so I can't comment, so I guess if you know anything, comment down below. Plus, I'm a cat-themed YouTuber and all, but we do not hate dogs. That's an ugly stereotype. Brian brings up what was likely the thesis for this episode, the idea of living in the moment.
Live with purpose. You know, celebrate every day. He talks about all those things that dogs do. Like, we do that. Dogs do that. It's instinctual.
How is a breakfast buffet living in the moment? But as Stewie points out, Brian's life is very antithetical to this.
I mean, you don't really do any of those things, do you?
Yeah, I do. Wait, what are you talking about?
I don't know. I mean, do you really live with purpose?
How could you say that to me?
It's true, he's very sedentary and has no purpose. But as the episode, kind of forgets, Brian has tried to launch and failed either due to his own actions, usually his own pride, and honestly, most of Brian's karma comes back to pride. Just saying, this is a character study, you should know your character a little bit. Like, he could have passed his final college exam and gotten a degree if he just cheated, but he insisted on not doing that, and that's why he failed. Even if everybody told him to, and told him he wouldn't get in trouble if he did. Or he could have used his own goodwill as the guy who bought Pot to Quahog to get his book published. Instead, he just went with Carter's idea of bribery, and it got universally panned and his reputation in the toilet. Just saying, for as much as I hated Brian's play, I feel like the episode at least pled a good case for Brian and why he tries so hard despite knowing he's basically a failure in life. And you know how I said one way Brian could improve would be if he accepted criticism, especially in regards to his book? I stick by that, even if, me admittedly, I hate getting criticized too, but unfortunately, as a writer, you need to hear it. It's the only way you improve. If Brian just got out of his own way, he would be successful. Really, he reminds me of Squidward. Like, he has his own way of doing things, but he insists on it being his own way of doing things. Why does he remind me of me? So Stewie instead says,
Just clever enough to occasionally amuse me. If I had anybody else to choose from, I would. You are the best of a bad situation. Nothing more. I use you, man.
Okay, it's sad how true that is. Like, I know Stewie is just saying that to get back at Brian, but he has a point. Stewie's home life is chaotic and unhappy. Like, even Meg said if this were real life, all the kids would be in foster homes. Brian is the only one who does care for him as something more than a baby, and recognize the fact he is a genius. Peter even said in Screwed the Pooch that Brian's more of a father than he is. So as horribly horrible and blunt as it is to put it, it's sadly a true statement that needed to be said.
Oh my God.
And when you did it, I actually felt sorry for you. There, your turn.
Huh, called it. See, I told you. He did it. He knew what he was doing. Which does make that scene worse for me. Like, why did they freaking add it? At least if Stewie was serious, it would make more sense because it is a bad situation all around.
You're a monster.
I know what you are, but what am I, Brian? Sorry, there's barely any Brian hate in this video. I need to keep my fans happy, and I have a quota to hit. Actually, you might just get your wish, kitty. Catherine, what do you mean?
Security camera. Oh my God, maybe somebody can see us. Hey, somebody help, we're in here!
Wait, so you're telling me this entire episode was broadcast on a security camera? Meaning somebody will see what happened and likely laugh that Brian was forced to do unspeakable things? Actually, I am kind of conflicted about this. Since yes, I do love Brian humiliation, if you couldn't guess. Actually, love it, because it gives me more to riff on. But at the same time, this makes me wonder even more why nobody bothered to rescue them. At least if they're in the cellar, nobody can hear them. Here, it's all on tape after all, and we can or no. Wouldn't there be a security person there to, observe the tapes? I mean, when I used to work at one of those apartment complexes, I had so much downtime, that was my favorite part of the job. Plus, the two aren't there by choice or to say, rob the place. Maybe they could observe the camera looks like it's on, and really nobody's watching, because who would be stupid enough to go into a bank vault? Or, okay, I don't know, I'm probably stalling. Stewie accidentally shoots the gun, and it ricochets everywhere, causing the pair to take shelter under the table.
I'm sorry, Stewie. Me too.
Wait, I'm sorry. Stewie, I didn't catch that.
Me too.
Shall we? Oh, at least Stewie apologized. At least that frickin' happened. They get bored and with nothing to do after that whole debacle, they do their own hobbies. Brian reads David Copperfield, which I'll get to later, but I didn't know that was actually a book. I thought it was just the name of a magician. And Stewie does yoga, both of which are things I have no problem with, and I don't mind if you do it, but for Brian and Stewie, it just makes them more pretentious. Also, if you need any more reason to hate Stewie this episode, here's one. They actually did have food. Energy bars to be exact. Meaning it wouldn't be like food, but it would be something to keep them held over.
What are you doing?
I was hungry.
You want one? You've had energy bars this whole time? You idiot!
Not energy bars.
Seriously, Stewie, what the hell? Like, if you couldn't guess, Stewie really annoyed me this episode. And normally, he's my favorite because he's hilarious, darlings. But here, it's just 22 minutes alone with him and Brian, and it makes him a tad obnoxious for me.
You can have strawberry yogurt.
I don't like strawberry yogurt.
Oh, picky for someone who eats the same food out of a plastic bowl on the floor every night.
No, he doesn't. He eats at the table, you lying sack of lies. Finally, Stewie asks about the gun, as in why does Brian have one if he's such a liberal who is in favor of such restrictions?
How come you have a gun?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? What about all that liberal crap you're always spewing about stricter gun regulations?
Well, outside of hypocrisy, Stewie, which we all know Brian's a major hypocrite, I feel like you still could. It just means you're in favor of restrictions and safety. After all, I'm liberal, and I'm in favor of gun control, but I still think you have the right to own one because that's guaranteed in the Constitution. But I know that I'd probably treat the gun like a toy, so I would not exercise that right for myself. Wait, why am I talking about this? I need to save this energy for my review on OKKO or BoJack. Plus, considering how much crap Brian gets into on a daily basis, I could totally see him owning a gun for, like, emergency reasons. But, like, why keep one in the bank vault? Well, Brian reveals there is a reason. If he ever wants to no longer go on living, the option is right there. He can take one final swig and then let whatever happens, happens. And Stewie is the only person he's ever told.
Wow. Oh my God, you're serious? But why, Brian?
You wouldn't understand. You're just a kid.
That's heavy. Trigger warning, I think it's my duty as a YouTuber to inform you of this. You are loved, you are wanted, and you got this, just so you know there are resources out there. But yes, I don't like the rest of the episode. I do love this part. This part I feel is very well written, and I would watch the episode solely to get to this. It just feels like such a chore to watch the other stuff.
Seem the quickest way, I guess.
I suppose.
Yes, you are. But really, a gun? Wouldn't chocolate be more efficient? You can go out eating something delicious. Plus, why did you have the book there in the first place? Stewie doesn't know what to say, besides he wishes Brian never does it, since Brian is his only friend, which is also sad but true.
Thought you said I was the best of a bad situation.
I was just trying to hurt you because you hurt me. But the truth is, you're my only friend, Brian. If I didn't have you, I'd be lost.
Furthermore, Stewie says he loves him. No, actually, he olive juices him.
I love you as one loves another person whom one simply cannot do without.
Well, I love you too, Stewie.
And Brian returns the sentiment. Olive juice you too. With only one night left before their release, Stewie asks for Brian to read to him. Arguably the first time Stewie shows a true interest in Brian this episode.
Whether I shall turn out to be the hero of my own life, or whether that station shall be held by anybody else, these pages must show. To begin my life with the beginning of my life.
The book, for those of you wondering, is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens, which I haven't read, but after a quick Google search, I think is pretty fitting. The book involves the titular character spending his entire life losing everyone he cares about and being pushed around from family to family. That he kind of makes the Baudelaires look quaint by comparison, until eventually his writing career takes off and he and his wife are able to find true happiness, which makes me wonder if perhaps Brian is trying to relate his own situation to David, like he finds kinship with him. Like, it might suck now, but it'll all be worth it at the end if he can just sell this one story. Plus, it doesn't help that apparently David Copperfield was to Charles Dickens what the bell jar was to Sylvia Plath, a barely disguised fictional autobiography. Surprised that's not an episode yet, like Brian tries to write a story about the Griffins and barely changes the names and stuff like that, and it's somehow a success, but they fall asleep and the door finally opens and Brian walks out carrying Stewie. So, what do I think of this episode? Did you not watch it? It's basically like, for me. Yes, I see what they're trying to do, and the main thing I can say is they certainly tried. It's just that I think it takes them too long to get to the good part, and the bad parts, well, they go on for too long. On its own, it's an okay-ish episode. Nothing to write home about. As the 150th episode, yeah, it's not that good. Honestly, I feel like out of all of the milestone episodes, except perhaps maybe Fighting Irish, this one is the absolute worst. Since Brian and Stewie, I don't think we needed to go any more in depth with them than they already do. But if you want a good episode about the two like this, try the one where Brian destroys Rupert. But anyhow, bye!